the number one Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to episode 241 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Bexon. Today, we're going to be talking with Kvon Tucker. Kvon is a leadership coach to CEOs, moved to Costa Rica about 2 years ago with his wife and his young daughter. So today, we're going to be talking to Kvon about kind of his experience and also advice now, kind of 2 years into Costa Rica, getting an idea of what was easy for him, what was a little bit more difficult, and kind of managing those expectations for people out there that are looking to potentially make Costa Rica home full-time or even part-time throughout the year, which I think that a lot of people are at the moment just because of the, I would say, instability politically and economically in the world as well. As I say, here in Costa Rica, not much happens, just the sun shines. Life is a little bit more expensive here than I would say in some places around Latin America, but definitely a little bit more secure. Remember, guys, if you're looking to move here to Costa Rica, relocate, invest in Costa Rica, even build, we have a huge part of our business, which is actually project management, where we oversee builds and kind of just advise people through the design and building process to just make sure they're not taken advantage of. And we also value engineer it as well, just to make sure they're getting value for money on that one. And you can reach out to us, guys, info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. Please don't be afraid. There's no obligation. We're happy to share contacts and knowledge always. You can also use some of the contact details down in the description below. Anyway, let's get straight into the podcast. Good morning, Kvon. How are you doing?
I'm well, man. Excited and grateful to be on your podcast. Appreciate the invitation.
Not at all, man. It's an absolute pleasure. I know we've been trying to organize it for a while and both our calendars
Yeah.
have been complicated, but
Yeah.
hey, we're finally here.
Absolutely. Hazards of being bosses. It's
True.
like it's amazing that we were able to make this work.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think this week it's been for me La Fortuna and Manuel Antonio, and next week I've got Nosada Tamarindo, and then La Fortuna again. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
No surprise, man. I know you continue to stay on the move. I'm not surprised by that at all.
I mean, I think if I'm ever sat still for a week, dude, something's wrong. So
I know that. I know that to be true.
well, come on, again, appreciate your time joining us on the podcast. I mean, I know that you moved to Costa Rica, a while back, and it's just kind of a lot of people now with just kind of, I would say, the instability and volatility, both economically and politically, are, questioning, where they're actually currently living and going, and Costa Rica, I think, is on a lot of people's radar.
Yeah.
But I mean, like recently, what have you started seeing here in Costa Rica?
Yeah. Well, recently, so I've been here for only about 2 years, a little over two, it's almost 2.5 years. Been here
Wow.
2.5 years. Um, what I have seen is I can't say that I know a lot about the shifts, but I have seen some changes, where I'm seeing, I guess you could call like more gentrification in certain
Yep.
neighborhoods.
Yep.
That's a term that we use in the United States. You see more of that, and that can be nice, but also can have some drawbacks for some of the folks who have been here and some of the locals. But for someone like myself, it's actually kind of nice because you start to have more things that you're used to in the United States. And so that's something that I've been seeing and noticing that has been kind of pleasant, but also as someone coming from the outside, noticing like shifts in culture, which is a big part of the reason why we came here, noticing that some of that culture might be moving away or shifting in some ways
Yep.
is something that I've noticed in the couple of years that I've been here.
Um,
Yeah.
what have been some of the biggest shocks since you've moved here? Because again, a lot of people listening are like looking to
Yeah.
move here, and I'm sure that there's some stuff where you're like, I was not expecting that.
Yeah, we've had some conversation about this, and I have to give you credit because you really told me like with your words how long it can take to get some things done here. But
Yep.
I just coming from the United States didn't really fully have the concept. And so that has, I think, been one of the biggest shocks. Like Buddha Vida is like a real thing and it has like pros and cons. I appreciate slower paced life and slower living, and you certainly get that. But when there is something that you want to get done, like residency as an example, it's like,
Yep.
oh man, like there's a whole lot here. This is going to take a lot of concerted effort and a lot of time and a lot of attention to kind of get those things moving through. So that's been, I think, the biggest shock is sometimes how long it can take to get something done has been a pretty big surprise, even though like I was forewarned. I
Yep.
still still have been a little bit surprised by it.
I always, but like every so often you'll get shocked. Like you're like, that was way too easy. Like I got a Costa Rican, I got citizenship here, way too easy. I got a
Uh,
passport, like way too easy. Like I lost my citizenship card the other week and I went online, filled something out, and the next day someone turned up to give me a new one. Like I was like,
wow.
that's, yeah, that's not normal,
Wow.
man.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to that. There are some things that are easier. But when it comes to like paperwork, often I find that it just takes longer than I could have ever imagined having living in it. It's like not the United States doesn't have the fastest moving government. But I find that some things just take a lot longer than I expected.
Yeah, I mean, as you said there, it's that kind of that Pura Vida mentality. So, which has its pros and cons always. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah.
What has been a lot easier than you thought? Are you still trying to figure that one out?
Uh, I had concerns about my level of Spanish and
Yep.
being able to connect with my community, like local community. And I have been surprised by the ease at which it has been to kind of get to know folks. I live in a condo here in Santana, and like people are just really friendly, and a lot more people speak English, and at least in this part of Costa Rica than I imagined. So it's like their English might be pretty good, and my Spanish is okay, and together we can actually make good conversation. We've gotten together with folks, multiple families, and had some good times with folks. So like building community has been easier than I kind of expected. I thought it was going to be a little bit more difficult, but it's been nice to, people seem to be really interested in building community with like their neighbors and stuff. So that's been something that has been surprisingly easy here in Costa Rica.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that move here are always concerned of like, am I going to build a community? And I'm like, you're going to have the opposite sometimes of like, you're going to have too much community.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That especially coming from the United States, I think I shared with you before. It's like we were in Palo Alto, California for 4 years, and we may have had a meal with our neighbors once in those 4 years. Here, we've had two meals with four or five neighbors,
Yep.
multiple times, so it's like we've gone to multiple parties and all these kinds of things. So yeah, building community is not difficult here. To your point, it's like you might have to be like, oh no, I can't go to this party and this party and this party.
Yep.
That's the challenge that we're facing.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, when you guys first came here was you bought a piece of land, you were going to build a house, and I think I mentioned to you, I was like, guys, maybe just try the city a little bit. Like it's a good transition from US to, because you guys were looking Ojochao, which is like, it's a little out there, if that makes sense. And coming
Yeah.
from Palo Alto to Ojochao is one, I wouldn't say one extreme to another, but they're pretty far apart.
It is. It is. Yeah. I wish I had, I remember asking you, like, why don't you live? What? It's like so many people are moving out there. Now I fully understand.
Yep.
So yeah, we bought land, which I'm grateful that we did, and I'm glad that we did that. But we originally had this vision of living out kind of in this very remote area with not a lot of access to stuff. And it was kind of like a dream. And then we spent some time here in Santana, in the Central Valley, and we're like, oh, this is great. We've got all these communities, we've got good schools, we've got access to good food, like all these things that are really important to us. So it's now I wish we had maybe taken more time to spend in this area. I don't know that it would have changed much about like how we went about like purchasing land because again I feel great about the land that we purchased, but maybe it would have changed our idea for what we were going to do with our land. Like that
Yeah.
definitely would have been different because now we're like, well, pretty sure we're not going to live in Ojochal. So
Yep.
what are we going to do with our land? And we're still asking ourselves that question. We're still not sure because we love it here so much. Like this is
Yeah.
just such a great part of the world to live in.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you've got kids, at the beach, like it's beach living, if that makes sense. Like you can't run the Costco. Like it's not like that. Living in the
Yeah.
city is great. I think, because again, if 10 minutes, like you can be in a forest if you want to, surround,
Hmm. Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
have all the benefits of living in like the suburbs.
Yeah, I wish because I love the water, right? And that was like one of the big things when we were talking to you about like finding places to live. Love the water. I still wish we lived closer to the water, but it
Yep.
is accessible, right?
Yep.
And it just takes a weekend trip. It's not something you can just run to like I used to be able to do, but it's something that's still accessible. Like living in this part of the country, I tell other folks that I have sold on moving to Costa Rica. Living in the Central Valley is kind of cool because you're literally in the middle of the country. And so most everything that you want is almost like equidistant from where you're at. It's like you want to get to the mountains, 2.5, 3 hours. You want to get to the beach, 2.5, 3 hours, depending on which beach you want to get to. We went to La Paz Waterfalls and
Yep.
it's like 60, 90 minutes or something like that. It's like it's not far and it's beautiful. So yeah, this part of the country I think is really nice, especially if you have family, because you have access to everything in like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then if you want to get out into nature, you can do so in like anywhere between like 30 and 60 minutes. And if you want to get deep into it, then it's a couple more hours drive.
Yeah. Well, and also just the climate. I mean, the climate in the Central Valley is spectacular. I mean, it's like what,
Yeah.
85 all year round.
Yeah, I love it. My wife's not crazy about it, but I love it. Like this is the kind of weather I feel like I've always wanted to live in.
Yep.
It's a little warm for Jessica.
Yep.
But I absolutely love it.
I mean, look, the beauty is again, you can travel 30 minutes and the temperature changes. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, I was up in the mountains yesterday, it was 13 Celsius, and now, here it's nearly 30 Celsius. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I know. I've been trying to, I know you and I both like San Gerardo de Delta,
Yep.
and it's like so beautiful up there. I need to get Jessica up there because that's like more her climate.
Yep.
And again, that's not far. It doesn't take long to get up there, and then
Not at
you're
all.
like in a completely different world. So it's really cool.
It's like being in Europe up there, you know?
Yeah, it's so nice. Oh, it's for us, it's similar to like the Pacific Northwest, like
Yep.
Seattle area. So I was telling Jess, I was like, this place, it's kind of magical, and you go and it's like older forest and it's cooler. It's very much like the Pacific Northwest for us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we finished our yurt project, so you're more than welcome to go and stay anytime you want to.
Oh man, man, I can't wait. I can't wait.
I mean, come on, would you say it's better for people to rent before buying here, or when do you think it's a better option to kind of buy rather than rent?
I I would. I have a client that I think you've met that is going to be moving to Costa Rica, and I've encouraged them and their family to rent first. And I say that because there's just a lot of things you don't know
Yep.
about living in Costa Rica and or maintaining a home in Costa Rica. It's like the humidity, the weather changes, the water, all these things, like the maintenance is going to be very different. And it's like you just want to go into buying, I think, with eyes wide open. So if
Yep.
you like rent a home or you rent a condo for a while, you'll get a sense of like, okay, this is the investment. It's not just a dollars thing. It's about amount of work that it might take to manage a home in these different parts of the world. And then also like getting to know your community and making sure that these are like the kind of neighborhoods that you want to be in. To me, I think renting first makes a lot of sense, rather than buying a home just based off of a picture and not getting to know the community and the feel, and the weather and all these other things. So I would highly recommend folks rent first. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Unless you've spent quite a bit of time in those areas, the difficulty becomes at the beach areas. It's so expensive to rent, and finding something decent is not easy as well. I mean, here in the
Yeah.
city, very easy and very affordable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Very different scenario. And it's like if you're thinking about moving to Costa Rica, honestly, I would try the city for a
Yep.
while and see how it feels, and then like go visit to like the beach towns and see how that like kind of commute feels. And then if you're like, no, actually, I really want to spend more and more time at the beach, like I want to be on the beach, then you can make a wiser choice about like, okay, well, do we buy or do we rent, right? And you'll have some sense of like what it's like to be in Costa Rica and all that kind of how it is to work in Costa Rica. So I would encourage folks to rent like in this area and then decide to like how they want to spread out and adventure into the rest of the country.
And let's be clear, when you say city, I mean it's not really city. Like
Oh no, it's not. Yeah, I try to explain that to people. I'm like, yeah, we're technically in like a suburb of
yep,
the city. We're like 20, 30 minutes from downtown proper, 15 when there's like no traffic, which is hardly ever.
yep,
Um, But we're in a suburb, but it's not like a suburb in the United States. You know, it's like in Santana especially, it's like very much kind of like an old farming community. So
Yep.
it's like you'll have a condo and then you'll have like we're literally next to a farm. You know,
Yep.
it's like we'll have a condo and a farm, and then a home with some land, and then another farm, and then a condo.
Yep.
So it's very much this like very different kind of transition community. I'm looking out my window here and I can see just mountains, right? That are just mostly untouched. So it's a suburb, but it's a suburb that's not fully developed yet. It's still
Yeah.
being developed in a lot of ways.
I mean, it's not like the US where you have these huge, monstrous subdivisions, if that makes sense, where everything's
No.
straight, nothing's straight in Costa Rica, nothing's flat and nothing's straight.
No, absolutely. Well, this is the thing I love about my daughter's school. Um, it's something I didn't really notice before when living in the United States because it's very normal to go to a school and have there like not be any grass or land.
Yep.
Whereas my daughter's school is kind of like you just kind of pull up and you pull in and it basically just looks like nature. It's just like all nature. And then there's a couple little domes. But these domes sit on just land, right? So they step out of their domes and it's just grass and trees. We don't have that in the United States. It's like concrete and asphalt. That's what the schools look like. So again, it's very different. You look left and you can see trees. You look right, you can see trees, even though this is technically quote unquote the city.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about schooling a little bit because, again, a lot of families that come here, I mean, you're like, oh, are the schools any good? What about US standards? What about going to US college? I mean, how have you guys felt and kind of dealt with those questions?
Yeah. For me, one, Ayana goes to a private school, a very, very small private school, if which is also extremely affordable relative to like what you would pay for in the United States. And so putting her in a private school, like it took getting to know some of our neighbors and seeing what schools they were in. So like understanding what schools are available does take talking to some folks here. At least that's what worked for us, but like they're using and referencing like Common Core, and so they're bringing kids up at the same with the same kinds of curriculum requirements as what you would have in the United States, but their approach is very different, and that's what we're really excited about and likes. Like Ayana's school, it's a great school. Um, their focus is first on like wellness, emotional well-being, social emotional learning, and academics kind of come second to that, which is
Yep.
something that we are really, really aligned to. And then they spend like 60% of their days outside, like connected to nature, and that's also supportive of them as, little growing human beings. That's the kind of stuff like just doesn't really exist in the United States. Like these organizations or these schools that are really centered on connection to nature. And, there's social emotional learning in the United States, but the emphasis is a bit different. It's more emphasis on academics as well. And so it's like finding schools here will take a little bit of work. It will take a little bit of conversation with your neighbors, a little bit of searching. But in terms of quality, I would say it's at least on par. I can't really say because I, wasn't looking for schools for my daughter while in the United States, but I know what kind of school I went to, and I
Yep.
know what kind of school my wife went to, and neither of us went to a school that is as great as the one that Ayana is going to. So that much I do know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like my kids are, 9 and 12. They're in a school. We started our eldest kid out in like a more European focused everything curriculum here, and she's a little bit more relaxed, should I say, than our European style of doing stuff. And it didn't really fit with her. So we moved her to more of kind of like, I would say a projects-based school with more stuff that's like, instead of doing exams, everything's kind of projects, but like you're physically doing stuff. Like they have chickens on
Yeah,
and those kind of things. So you learn biology and everything through actually like figuring out like how the chickens are made and the eggs and like,
that's super cool.
yeah, yeah. And as you said, affordable. I mean, I think I paid $600 a month for each kid. Like,
Yeah, yeah. This is a huge difference. Um, we were thinking about like day childcare in the United States. I mean, we're in Palo Alto, California, which happens
yeah,
to be one of the most expensive places in the world. But if we wanted childcare, full-time childcare, similar to what we were getting, what we're getting at Baleli, Ayana's school, it would be multiple thousands of dollars a month.
yep.
For Ayana, it's, I want to say, 30%, 20% of that.
Yep.
on a monthly basis, but getting so much more, getting education, getting community events, we're meeting families. So you get a lot more for a lot less. So that is not a part of the reason why we moved to Costa Rica, but it is a very much appreciated benefit. We're like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. Like schools, any parent out there that's wondering about quality of schools, I would say don't worry. You'll find lots of different options
Yeah.
that are actually very, very affordable.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Texas Tech here, man. I mean, like they have a campus
Yeah,
here.
that's what I heard about that. Yeah, it's interesting. So I think I think this is a part of the reason, part of your job, right? And it's part of the outcome of your job. So like a lot of people are realizing that Costa Rica has a lot to offer. It has been a slower growing country, but I think it's growing a little bit faster. And there, some downsides to that, but it's such a beautiful place, beautiful people, beautiful culture. Lots and lots to
Yeah.
offer here.
But it's not cheap. Let's be clear of like living
You
here is
know,
not cheap.
it is not cheap. Again, if you're coming from a place like Palo Alto, California, it is
It-
relatively very
yeah.
affordable. But if you're coming from other parts of the United States, no, it is not cheap. And as I think, it's like the most expensive place in Central America, right?
Yep.
We've been to some local countries and we're like, oh wow, it's a lot more affordable here. So it's not cheap. But there's reasons for that. Similar like why California isn't cheap or why places like Palo Alto, California aren't cheap. There's like lots to offer, so there's gonna be some costs that are incurred.
Well, people sometimes are concerned about security. Like, am I going to be safe? What's your viewpoint on that? Because I tell people I'm like, it's safer here than probably anywhere else.
Yeah, my wife has said this many times. She feels safer than she ever has in her entire life.
Yep.
We live in this condo. We so it's a funny story. This is also a very Costa Rican thing. We don't have a house key right now.
Yep.
And
My door's
that's
never locked.
yeah, we don't need a house key right now. We're not going anywhere. But we don't need a house key, so we have to get a replacement. But it's like totally fine. It's totally fine for us not to have a. We hardly ever lock our front door. I often leave my car unlocked.
Yep.
We feel very secure. Like we have security here, but I wonder how much we really need it. We just feel super, super safe. And like safe, even walking down busy streets. Feel super safe. Like I personally have never felt safer in my life either, other than like maybe the small town that I grew up in was
Yep.
also very kind of like quiet, very community oriented town. But if you're coming from any major American city, uh, I'd say just about any place that I have been to in Costa Rica is likely going to feel a lot safer than any major American city in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a lot of noise around like the insecurity in Latin America and whatever. But I'm like, guys, you have to understand Costa Rica is very different than a lot of Latin America.
It is to me so different. And you and I have had some conversation about why that is, but it is so different from to me any other place I've ever been to. And this is part of the reason why we landed here. It's like the people are the kindest people I have ever met. So in my mind, they're the kindest people that that exist.
Yep.
This place feels safer. And making community is so much easier. So again, I'm here. I'm completely sold on here, and I love living here, and we'll be here for the foreseeable future. We have no plans on leaving anytime soon, but it's for all of these reasons. One, it's not cheap, but it's not also not expensive
Yeah.
relative to what we're used to in the United States. But you get so much for what it does cost to live here.
Who should not move to Costa Rica?
Mm. Thinking about this question, I think it would be unwise to move to Costa Rica if you don't have a stable life.
Yep.
And it's like if your family is not stable and secure, if your finances aren't stable and secure, if you're kind of in this place where things are unstable for you, I think it would be unwise to move to Costa Rica. People have fantasies about moving to a place like Costa Rica, like it's gonna fix their problems. Say, oh nah, I think if you move to a place like Costa Rica, it might make your problems more pronounced. Whatever issues you are. So don't come to Costa Rica if you're trying to escape something. I'd encourage folks to move to Costa Rica if they're trying to make some part of their life even more fuller. Like we moved to Costa Rica because we were already feeling very much aligned to the culture here, and so we just want to like put ourselves in it, and it's worked for us. Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend moving to Costa Rica if you're not really stable and secure in your life in general. I also wouldn't move to Costa Rica if you don't have a true deep appreciation of the culture and the people here. And I think this is a part of like what I know some people who are, what some ticos and ticas are feeling is they see people moving in and not really appreciating, not really trying to become a part of the local culture and local
Yep.
community. Just kind of like coming in and doing their own thing essentially and not really connecting. If you're not interested in that and you're not familiar with the culture, I'd say maybe take some time to get to know the culture before you move here.
I completely agree with that last statement, but also as this country will find a way to also reject you as well if you don't kind of assimilate. Right? Because if you try and
Yeah.
get stuff done here with a non-Costa Rican mentality, good luck, man. Because I mean, it's a
Yeah.
passive aggressive environment here. So if you come at it a little bit more Western aggressively, they'll just shut down, dude. Or they'll say
Yeah.
yes and just don't do it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what happened to us when we first moved here and tried to get our residency through like
Yep.
rapidly. I think people were just like, "No, I don't like your energy. I'm gonna put some things in front of you to slow you down." And now that we've taken some time and took a break off of trying to push some of this stuff
Yep.
through, things are starting to move better for us. So again, that's been a learning process for us. Like, oh, okay, we were stressed. We
Yep.
were stressed when we first got here and trying to make stuff happen, and we didn't realize the dynamic and the energy of us, ourselves, and how we were impacting the people around us.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to understand of like Costa Rica is like a river just flowing. Just float with it, man. Because if you try and swim or stand up against the current, it's just going to take it. Like, just go with it. And when things happen, they will happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that to me, that's I'm still learning what Pura Vida is, but that sounds like it's a part of it for me. It's like let's
Definitely.
go with it, don't resist it. That's when you create suffering for yourself and everyone around you. Like, okay, you know what? Just let go, and things will start to work for you when you do.
I mean, I had it this morning. I went to see a house up in the mountains just because me and my wife are thinking about buying another house up in the mountains for weekends. And the
Mm.
woman sends me the link for it, the realtor. And dude, it's a kilometer away from where we're at. And she's like, "Where are you?" I'm at the point that you sent me. And she's like, "Well, can you close it down and open it back up?" And I'm like, "It keeps sending me to the same point." And I'm like, "Come and get me. Like, this is where I am." And she came and get me and then drove a kilometer. I'm like, it wasn't even anywhere close to it. Like, real estate is a mess here, of course, as you know, anyway. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
But what do you miss? What do you wish that you had in the US, like here in Costa Rica? And I'm going to ask you the other thing, like when you travel, what you miss, but like what do you miss from the US that you wish that you had here?
Mm. The first thing that comes up for me is just people,
Yep.
and it's like I can't move all of my friends and family to Costa Rica, but I wish I could. Um, that's the biggest thing. You know, the other thing that comes up for me is like access to some specific products.
Yep.
So it's like something really big, important, like people in community, and then like I just wish that sometimes I could order something from Amazon and it got here the next day and it didn't cost me an arm and a leg.
Yep.
Um, Yeah, honestly, not a lot beyond that. We're really enjoying being here. Also miss, and this might be more to do with like the kind of neighborhood that I live in, but I miss sidewalks.
Yep. Yeah, we don't do
My
sidewalks that very good
my
that well here.
they're here and there in different parts of the Central Valley. And it's like you walk through Escazú and it's like, oh wow, they got some nice sidewalks here. Here, sidewalks are up and down. They disappear, they come back. Because we love to walk and we love to walk in our community. And so I miss being able to just go for long walks in the community, that kind of stuff. But yeah,
You know what?
that's it.
Parks. Like
Hawks?
parks to walk around in, like
Oh,
large green,
yeah.
like huge ones where
Yeah.
it takes a while to like. We don't have that as much here because
No.
we have parks, but they're national parks. They're huge jungle and like the trails through them like sometimes don't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. That to me, we miss we miss being able to walk in like places like that, like having green spaces that also like have shade.
Yep.
Because it can be, with 85-degree weather year round, sometimes it can be unbearable. And this is something that we learned. It's like when 12 o'clock, 12:01 hits, like people disappear. That's because it's just like really too hot to be outside. But we like to go on walks. So we were like going on walks in the afternoon and like, why isn't anybody outside? And then 10 minutes into the walk, we realized no one's outside because it is scorching and there's no shade. There's no reprieve. So we miss stuff like that, like having green spaces that are shaded and easy to walk through. It's
Yeah.
really important for us.
What do you miss of Costa Rica when you travel?
Um, Similar question, similar answer. The people. Like
Yep.
when we when we go to other places, it's become so apparent to me how much Costa Ricans love kids. After when we first got here, we felt it, right? I'm like, wow, like Costa Ricans love kids. They give our daughters so much attention, and restaurants always have spaces for kids to play, and so thoughtful, so considerate. And then we go to other places, and we're like, do they care about kids at all here? There's nothing for kids. They don't even have a children's seat. Like, what's going
Yep.
on? Um, and like, don't give your kids any attention at all. And like, it just feels like community and love here, and that's what we miss whenever we travel somewhere else. And it's like just the feeling of community, the feeling of like wanting to get to know one another, wanting to connect. When you know this, like you get to know the people around you, the people that you visit. Like I feel like we have our friends at all the local shops, and
Yep.
I miss that when I'm not in Costa Rica. Just that level of friendliness and community and connection that feels just very Costa Rican because I just haven't experienced that anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as you said, I think if you open your heart a little bit and arms, like that, everyone will accept you with welcome,
Absolutely.
welcoming arms and a heart here. You know,
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And this is what makes to me and it's like I thought I knew, just from having taken a couple trips here for, a few weeks at a time, like felt like, oh, Costa Ricans are like friendly people, right? I thought I had a sense of the culture. Um, but after living here for 2.5 years, I have a much better sense. And it is just a precious, precious community, precious culture, precious people that I just have not experienced anywhere else in the world.
well, come on, I've kept you long enough, but my last question for you that I love to ask everyone. If you inherited $500,000 and you had to invest it into a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you do with it and why?
Oh, oh man. This, I promise this is not canned response, but I would invest it in whatever you are doing. I'd be like, Richard, where should I put my money? Because I have so much trust in you, and I know that you're also so keen on what is happening in this country that if I wanted to really make smart investments, I would probably consult with you, which I have.
Yep.
So it's a biased response, but it's an honest response. Um, because I can't pretend like I know the best places to put money in this country, but I know someone who has some really, really good ideas, and that is you.
Well,
So I would ask you like, hey, are you investing in some properties? Like, how can I get in? And that's something that,
yeah.
you and I will be doing more of in the future.
Awesome. Awesome. We'd love to have
Yeah.
you on board, Kvon. But
Yeah,
I
man.
very much appreciate you taking time out of what I know is a very busy day.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
yeah,
thank
it's
you.
been great to get you on here, share your, experience and also knowledge with everyone. And yeah, have a great day, sir.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored to be able to offer something to your folks.
No worries. Thanks very much.
All right, take care.
Great podcast there with Kvon. I think anyone that's looking to move to Costa Rica should just really listen to what he had to say there. Like it's not for everyone, but can be absolutely amazing. And, I mean, I think it's just about finding your right community and right location in Costa Rica. Every different location has different climate, different types of people, and very different communities and activities. And definitely climate. I mean, southern area gets a lot more rain. The northern area is very dry and dusty, especially this time of year and the hottest. Central Valley is probably one of the cooler areas, and you can kind of move up at elevations here in the Central Valley from like 1,000 meters, which is 3,000 feet, up to 4,000 or 5,000 feet in some areas here. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the podcast, guys. Anyone that wants to get in contact with us that can, again, no obligation to even do business with us. If you're just like, look, Rich, I need some help with something, or what about this, or what about that? We're a sucker for helping people. So email us info@investingcostarica.com, or if you basically want to, in the description down below, there's a link there. You can meet with one of the guys here in the office, just because I'm usually running around like a headless chicken on some of the projects that we've got in Arenal and Monteverde. Monteverde's coming, sorry, in Arenal, and also Manuel Antonio. And if there's any interest in investing in them or wanting to know a little bit more, feel free to reach out to us and we'll have a chat with you about those as well. But appreciate your support, guys. Until the next podcast, we'll see you soon. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.